Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yamunatira Vanachari. Yamunatira Vanachari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravajakacharya Ashtotar Sri Srimad Divine Grace Sri Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravajakacharya Ashtotar Sri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Okay. Be on page 627. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 18th day of December 2024 in San Diego, the glorious disappearance day of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, We are studying Srimad Bhagavad Gita, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Chapter 16, the Divine and Demoniac Natures, texts 11 to 12, bottom of page 627. Chintam apadimeyancha pralayantam upashitaha kamopabhoga padama etavad iti nishtitaha chintam apadimeyancha pralayantam upashitaha kamopabhoga padama etavaditi nishtita chintam apadimeyancha pralayantam upashitaha kamopabhoga padama etavaditi nishtita chintam apadimeyancha pralayantam upashitaha kamopabhoga padama etavaditi nishtita. 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 Okay, I'll chant the next one myself. Asha pasha shata buddha kama krodha padayanaha ihante kama bhogartam anyayen artha sanchayan. Word by word. Let's see, okay. Chintam, fears and anxieties, apadimeyam, immeasurable, cha, and palayantam, unto the point of death, upashitaha, having taken shelter of, kama upabhoga, sense gratification, padama, the highest goal of life, etavad, thus iti, in this way, nishtitaha, having ascertained. Translation. They believe, the demons believe, that to gratify the senses is the prime necessity of human civilization. Thus, until the end of life, their anxiety is immeasurable. Bound by a network of hundreds of thousands of desires and absorbed in lust and anger, they secure money by illegal means for sense gratification. Purport. The demoniac accept that the enjoyment of the senses is the ultimate goal of life, and this concept they maintain until death. They do not believe in life after death, and they do not believe that one takes on different types of bodies according to one's karma or activities in this world. Their plans for life are never finished, and they go on preparing plan after plan, all of which are never finished. We have personal experience of a person of such demoniac mentality who, even at the point of death, was requesting the physician to prolong his life for 4 years more because his plans were not yet complete. Such foolish people do not know that a physician cannot prolong life even for a moment. When the notice is there, there is no consideration of the man's desire. The laws of nature do not allow a second beyond what one is destined to enjoy. The demoniac person who has no faith in God or the supersoul within himself performs all kinds of sinful activities simply for sense gratification. He does not know that there is a witness sitting within his heart. The supersoul is observing the activities of the individual soul. As it is stated in the Upanishads, there are two birds sitting in one tree. One is acting and enjoying or suffering the fruits of the branches, and the other is witnessing. But one who is demoniac has no knowledge of Vedic scripture, nor has he any faith. Therefore he feels free to do anything for sense enjoyment, regardless of the consequences. Om jnana timirandasya jnanandana shalakaya chakshur unmilitam mena tasmai shri gurave namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So, Krishna is continuing to describe the unfortunate demons who are always in anxiety, unlimited, what does he say? Unlimited anxieties. Yes, immeasurable. Until the end of life, their anxiety is immeasurable. You can see why. If you just, try to imagine what it's like without even a tinge of Krishna consciousness, and that your whole life is simply calculating. How can I, so much of it, especially in today's world, is how can I get security? There's these two things, yoga and kshema, Krishna describes in the 8th chapter, the famous verse. Ananyaschindayanto mam hejana pashupasate tesham nityabhyuktanam yoga kshema bahamyaham. And there he's saying that for those who are always thinking of me, which is a very high standard of Krishna consciousness, ananyachetak yomam chadadi nispraha. Now that's a different one. Ananyaschindayanto mam yejana payupasate tesham nityabhyuktanam yoga kshema bahamyam. So for those who are always Krishna conscious, advanced devotees, he's saying, I preserve what they have and I provide what they lack. This is these two words, yoga and kshema. Now yoga, in this instance, yoga has different meanings, means the things that we need to connect with in order to survive. Food, water, shelter, like that. And then there's also security, a very important aspect. We can have all the necessary things, but if the army is coming over the mountain, you just want to run. You can't sit down to a nice dinner. In other words, there's yoga and there's kshema. There's also security. Those two things. So Krishna says, for one who's always thinking of me, I personally provide those two things, those essentials. So here, the demons, they try to provide themselves. They have they're not thinking of Krishna. If they think of him at all, they want to try to kill him. That's several times, and we'll find that in the Bhagavad Gita. So, if you're trying to provide those things for yourself, then there's always going to be fears and anxieties. Because you may be able to do it for some time, but then there's always the danger that you can't do it anymore, right? There's this, like we had this, I'm sure all of you know about these two monstrous hurricanes that hit northern Florida and North Carolina and everything. So people are, if you've got a house in Florida, especially near the ocean, you feel you've got it made. Because you forget about the hurricanes, especially when it's not hurricane season, right? We're good. But then at a certain point, the thing comes and destroys. You can't even get insurance now because of climate change. The hurricanes have become stronger and more frequent. And so this is my friend. I have a friend in Florida. You remember Indra. I don't know if you were here at that time, Indra Pramad. He was here in the early 90s. But we know each other from way back. We joined about the same time in 1973. He joined a little earlier than me. But we're old. And then somehow I kept connecting with. I moved down. I moved down to Florida, and he was coming down there. And then we moved to San Diego, and he came over here. So we have a connection. So he's had a house in Alachua for 30 years now, and the storms have gotten so much more frequent and powerful. And it's not that his place is so much, because Alachua is near Gainesville, it's inland. And inland, and in the hurricanes, they become they lose a lot of power when they go over land, you know. If you're on the coast, it can be horrific. But still, they come and they knock down trees and, you know, the wind. Anyway, so he's saying his insurance went way up. You know, because the insurance companies, they take a real bath, you know, when there's a lot of houses that they've insured, they're destroyed and they've got to replace them, you know. So anyway, this is, you know, he's a devotee, so he said, well, I'm not paying insurance. You know, it's not worth it. I'm just going to wing it, you know. That's not Krishna. That's one solution. But if your focus is entirely on the material, which is what the demonic means, there's not a tinge of the spirit. If there is, they don't believe in it. You know, they try to conquer it. You know, like the Hiranyakashipu, Ravana. So that's why it says chintam aparimeyam, immeasurable fears and anxieties, unto the point of death. And death itself is the biggest anxiety. If you don't believe there's a life after death, and you can't really, because if you do, then what about what's going to determine that life I have? What I'm doing now. But what I'm doing now, I realize is pretty vicious stuff, you know. And that's so you know you're going to a bad place. So it's easier to just not believe in it, especially in these days, you know. But that doesn't really help you. That's like the rabbit sticking his head in the ground, right? So you see the lion's coming and says, well, I don't believe it. And he puts his head in the ground and he gets eaten up. That's exactly what the demons do. And those who are not out-and-out demons, they're just victimized. They're not trained in devotional service. They live in a society that's all mixed and there's all kinds of things. And what do you get faith in? You know, the present society. There's so many inputs. You know, at the end of this chapter, I'll just give you a preview. One of the most important verses I consider in the Bhagavad Gita, he says, Tasmat Shastra Pramanam Te, Karya Karya Vastito. Just those first two lines. Therefore, and there's of course an argument before it, but the point is, you should accept Shastra as your pramana, your evidence of what to do and what not to do. Not your own whims, not some, you know, friend of yours or some book you pick up in the library or something written by an ordinary person. No, you have to have Shastra, which means basically the Word of God, or words that are spoken by those who are devoted to God, and they're writing in such a way that you can understand. Just like this Sanskrit, I mean, I couldn't, if all he had here tonight was just the Devanagari, I wouldn't know what to say. But because Prabhupada painstakingly gave us the word, the transliteration, and he was very eager to do that because the sound itself is so powerful. You know, sometimes you wonder, well, do we really need to chant the verse? This is a really tough one, you know, I don't know if I can do it, you know. But the point is that if we work a little bit, and you know, I can help you, you learn how to, there's a Sanskrit pronunciation guide at the back, you know. So Prabhupada painstakingly gave that, and the word by words, you won't find that anywhere. It's any other Gita, even if they give you the transliteration. I have a whole bunch of Gitas in digital form for my work as editing to check, you know, and nobody gives it word by word, practically nobody else, you know. Because that's first of all, it expands the size of the book. It's a lot more work, you know, to do these word by word meanings, you know. And it expands the size of the book. You can have a Gita with just the translation, and of course without any purport. Then it really gets small. It's only 700 sentences. How long is that? You know, that was the first Gita I read. A little paperback, Penguin edition. You know, I didn't know what to make of it. There was no question. Oh, I'm going to go surrender to Krishna. It just didn't come out. You know, there was no even so. So Prabhupada painstakingly gave us the Devanagari, which, you know, I can't read it, you know, but you can learn how to read that. It gives you a sense of the tradition behind it, the original words, you know, and then how to pronounce it to make the sound. The next verse is one of my favorites. It has a line in here where Krishna is pretending to be a demon. He's declaring words that if he were a demon. And you'll see, it's quite amazing. So anyway, I'm just in terms of, appreciating what we've been given here. So this is typical. They believe they gratify the senses to the prime necessity of human life. Until the end of life, till the end of life, their anxiety is immeasurable. Because what happens? If your whole life is just sense gratification, the senses are eventually going to be sources of pain, not pleasure. The very senses that you try to enjoy don't give you any joy anymore, because you're always in anxiety, the senses are weakened, or they're painful, or whatever it is. So now you're stuck. You got this body, and all you know is sense gratification, so you're just completely frustrated. And a life like that, because it's built on lust and greed. You want more and more, and a whole thing of name and fame. To be honored is also sense gratification. That's why Krishna consciousness is Trinadapi Sunichena. To be as humble as a blade of grass, not wanting any honor for oneself, and giving all honor to others. It's just the opposite. But it's not. But the point is that it's directed toward your relationship with Krishna. He's not trying to exploit you. He doesn't need anything from us. He's giving of himself for our benefit. Our serving him is for our benefit, not for him. He's got millions of servants. He doesn't have to come down here. But out of his compassion and mercy, he comes very rarely. I'm not going to go, once every 8 billion years. And he comes to this earth. But he's always got his representatives here. The point, the acharyas, the paramahamsas, and he has his book like that. So if we're fortunate enough to come in touch with Krishna's manifestations, external manifestations here, the deity, the holy name, of course, the books, the devotees, then there's hope of being reformed from our, in this age especially, default kind of demoniac mentality. It's just there's so much confusion and so many rabbit holes you can go down, where you're accepting this particular site as your pramana and what to believe and how to live. I'm talking about site on the internet. But who's on the other end of the site? Who's given the so-called knowledge there? Some other demon, who knows how to work the internet or something, In other words, it's a disastrous situation for the person who is not intelligent enough to agree to be influenced by the books of Srila Prabhupada and so forth. So this is you can see, until the end of life, anxiety is immeasurable, bound by a network of hundreds of thousands of desires and absorbed in lust and anger. They secure money by illegal means for sense gratification. I keep telling this story, but it just keeps coming back. Some of you may have heard it before. When I was a kid, there were these two main magazines, weekly magazines. Time is still around, although I think it's much diminished, Time magazine. But Life there was once called Life, I think. And it was a big magazine full of pictures. And, there was news, they would show current things, So once they did a special on I think it was the New York Mafia. There was a big special article, and they had various pictures, some of them probably mugshots, of these guys. And I just remember, it just sticks in my mind to see them. None of them looked happy, They all looked angry and dangerous, And they would give little, this one is convicted of this one is convicted of murder, and so on, And I came from a nice family. My parents were very charitable and good people. And so I was just put off by this. I mean, I wasn't attracted to try to be like one of them. But later on, much later, when I joined the movement, I could see that kind of mentality is just you're never really satisfied. You're painful. You've committed so many murders. You're trying to, get this person, and there's also that element. Remember, I mentioned that word damba. Damba is the first quality. That's how he started describing dambo, darpo, vimanapta. So damba is false pride, especially in terms of religion, And so a lot of these mafia, they were Italian guys or whatever. So they were, Catholics. So they would show up at church every week, because it's good. It's good business to seem like you're religious. It kind of counteracts what everyone knows you are. You remember when Kamsa, the pastime, when Kamsa was about to kill his sister, actually his cousin, Devaki, because there was an omen that the 8th son of Devaki was going to kill him. So, let me kill her. So Vasudev, he was right there, and he appealed to him. And what really worked was when he said that it won't be. He didn't say it in so many words, but it won't be good for your reputation to kill your sister at the time of her wedding. In other words, it was his self-interest that finally said, "Yeah, it wouldn't look good. It's not going to help my reputation. So it's the 8th son, so I'll take care of the sons." So it's always the calculation. It's always the what's beneficial for me. That's the characteristic of a demon. If they're giving charity, it's because it looks good. They don't really have the feeling. Out and out demons. So so there's all this anxiety and fear, and bound by hundreds of thousands of desires. How can they possibly be fulfilled? In other words, you're bound to have all these unfulfilled desires, which itself is a anxiety. And therefore they secure illegal means for sense gratification. The world is full of people like that. Can you take the book off of there if you want to put it up behind you on the shelf? Yeah. Yeah. I know it's hard to with your one hand to hold it, but shouldn't put it on a place where you sit. Okay, let's go on. Now Krishna is imitating the words of the demon.
I have a question.
Oh, Vijay, Krishna. Okay, let's hear. We usually don't hear you for this class. Go ahead.
Are you commenting on text 13 through 15?
No, we haven't gotten to that yet. I was doing 11, 12.
Okay, I'll wait for asking my question.
Okay. All right. So I'll say just the first one. We'll do the first one. Idam adya maya labdham imam prapse manoratham idam asti idam api me bhavishyati punardhanam. Okay. Let me just chant the next verse alone, because it has that line where my favorite line. Aso maya hatak shattur hanishye chaparanapi ishvaroham aham bogi siddhoham balavan sukhi adyo bijanavanasmi konyosti sadrisho maya yakshe dasyami modishya itya jnana vimohita. The demoniac person thinks, so much wealth do I have today, and I will gain more according to my schemes. So much is mine now, and it will increase in the future, more and more. He is my enemy, and I have killed him. And my other enemies will also be killed. I am the Lord of everything. I am the enjoyer. I am perfect, powerful, and happy. I am the richest man, surrounded by aristocratic relatives. There is none so powerful and happy as I am. I shall perform sacrifices. I shall give some charity, and thus I shall rejoice. In this way, such persons are deluded by ignorance. So that line there, Ishvaroham hambogi, siddhoham balavan sukhi. Ishvaro, I'm the master. Ishvaro, I'm the Ishvara. We know from the first verse of Brahma Samhita, Ishvara Parama Krishna, but that's the last thing they want to hear. Aham Bogi, I'm the enjoyer. Who can enjoy like me? Siddho, I'm perfect, Balavan, powerful, Sukhi, and happy. That's the demon's mantra. We should make a t-shirt in case the demons. Hare Krishna. So there's no purport here. So, did you want to...
Yes, but it's about this verse that I have a question.
Go ahead, Prabhu.
Okay, the first sentence.
In the translation?
Can you read it again?
The English, okay. The demonic person thinks, so much wealth do I have today, and I will gain more according to my schemes.
Yes, that is the sentence. Thank you very much, you're most kind. Dandavat pranams. Dravida Prabhu, my question is, based on this sentence, my question is, why is it that demons in general like to be rich, and transcendentalists in general like to be poor.
Well, they like to be rich because they are, as it says in the beginning of the other verse, Chintam aparimena, kamobhaboga parama. Kamobhaboga parama means that parama means the highest goal of life is enjoying sense gratification. So that means there's always more to buy, more experiences to have, right? So that's what happens when you're always meditating on lusty desires. It produces greed. What are the three gateways to hell? I think there's three gateways at the end of the chapter here. Trivadam dadakasedam dwaram nashanamatmana kama krodha tata lobha. Lust, anger, and greed. Those three. Now, greed naturally follows from lust because when your whole point of your life is enjoying sense gratification, there's never enough. Or there's always one other thing that you feel, oh, I gotta have, you know? That's why you find these billionaires, they always have 12 cars. At least, right? Because why just one car? Suppose I want to, you know, have the top down sometime, or they'll drive in a limousine, or whatever, you know, I mean, it's and it's a matter of prestige. That's another thing. That's a big aspect of being a big demon, is to be honored. This is where the Damba, you're not honorable, but you like being honored, you know, and you pay people off to honor you, basically. You know, you'll have a bunch of sycophants who are just sucking up to you because they know, you know, they can make money or get something. You know, we have demons, very famous demons. I'm not going to name any names, but you can guess what I mean. And are they happy? No. You can see there's so much anxiety, so much anger. You know, I wasn't honored. You know, you betrayed me. You know, I was. You can see there's no. So the opposite is the devotees try to minimize the things that they need, so that you don't get attachment, because the things that remember that famous verse in the second chapter, Dhyayado vijayān pungsa sangasteshu vijayate sangatajayate kama krodha vijayate. He describes there the chain. So the whole thing, the idea. Let's think of the previous chapter now, the beginning, where we talked about the upside down banyan tree. So everything that is here is there in its perfection in the spiritual world. This is, Prabhupada's called the perverted reflection, you see? So in the spiritual world, greed is good. Greed for service to Krishna, you see? In other words, that's given as a verse by Ramananda Roy as the only way in which you can attain perfection. Krishna bhakti dasa bhavitamati kriyatam yadikatopi labhyate tattva laulyam, that's greed, tattva laulyam api mulyam ekadam janmakoti sukatayana labhyate. So Krishna bhakti dasa bhavati concisely means Krishna consciousness. Actually, Prabhupada, that phrase has its root in this line of his verse, believe it or not. Krishna bhakti rasa bhavatam, the mind absorbed in bhakti rasa, that's Krishna consciousness. Rasa is relationship, the taste of relationship. Kriyatam yadikatopi labhyate. You should buy it if you can find it in the market. That's what the second line, if you can. Yeah. But what's the price? Tatra laulyam api mulyam. Mulya means price, and laulyam means greed. Your ardent desire for it is the price for it. Now our ardent desires are all based on material things, so we can tickle the senses. We can, you know, but that's a losing proposition. Then you become a demon. You know, you're on the bodily concept of life, and someone is taking your sense gratification or blocking it or whatever, you know. But by becoming greedy for pleasing Krishna's senses, that's the service attitude. Then you can experience Krishna Bhakti Rasa. And there's no limit to it. You see? It's not that it runs out. It doesn't run out. because Krishna is unlimited, and your ability to experience that is unlimited as a spiritual being. But if you're into the material sense gratification, it's always limited. It's limited by time, and your senses are limited. And if you get too much sense gratification, then you get disease. It's exactly opposite to what you're hoping for, and that's why you're full of anxiety. Think of the 180 degrees. To be proud and powerful and strong and the master and the enjoyer, that's the demon, you know. Ishvaroham, aham bogi, siddhoham, balavan, sukhi, you know. But you can see it's false. You can't really do it. But if you realize, oh, Krishna's, what is the end of the 5th chapter? Bhoktaram, Yajñasaptasam, Sarvaloka Maheshwaram, Sudidam Sarvabhutanam, Gyatvam Shantamichati. Krishna says, I am the enjoyer of everything. I am the Ishvara of all the planets, right? So he's saying, and I am the friend, I am your well-wishing friend of everyone. One who knows this attains peace. So Krishna's not bragging, he's not, you know, he's not trying to lord it over for his own sense gratification. He enjoys the giving his devotees pleasure by having them experience various rasas and relationships with him. That's he enjoys by giving his gopis enjoyment, and they're enjoying by giving him enjoyment. That's bhakti, you know, not self-centered, Krishna-centered. It's as simple as that. So that's the idea. And, you know, we can go back to, Bhagavatam is full of confirming statements. I always go back to Rishabhdev, this wonderful lesson he has, because the first verse of his lesson to his sons is all important. Nayam deho dehabhajang loke kashtang kamana David bhujang ye. You know, it's a strong word. Anyone who's taken a human form, he's speaking to his 100 sons, you're all human beings. Nayam deho dehabhajang nirloke, human society, nirloke in the world of human beings, taking a human birth. Dehabhajang nirloke, kashtan kaman, should not work very hard for satisfying the senses. Nayam deho dehabhajang, kashtan kaman, in the name of kama, kashtan kaman arhate vidbhujange, working hard for sense gratification, like literally the stool-eating hogs, you know. So what's the alternative? The alternative is austerity, but divine austerity, not austerity like Hiranyakashipu. Tapo divyam, puttaka yena sattvam shuddhe. What will you get from the austerity? Purification of your existence. Tapo dim puttaka yena sattvam shuddhe. What will I get from that? Brahmasaukyam tvanantam. You'll get unlimited happiness called Brahmasaukya, spiritual happiness. This is the stark alternative. Either it's going to be sense gratification and degradation like the hogs, or it's going to be austerity, divine austerity, for the purpose of purification, which results in your being able to enjoy unlimited happiness forever. So what's the best? You know, who intelligent person would pick the first alternative? Those who are not intelligent, whose intelligence has been stolen by illusion, you know. So that's later on he has this verse, this lesson. Nunam pramatta kurute vikarma yadindriya pritaya apranoti nasadumanye yata atmanoyam asannapi kleshada asadeha. So in that one verse he's giving so much knowledge. He says, certainly it is true that those who are simply after the sense gratification are thoroughly mad. Nunam, not just mad, matta, but pramatta. You know. Why? Because by prioritizing sense gratification, you're sure to get another body, which is sure to bring you all kinds of suffering. Another material body. You see. So then the next verse is even more illuminating, because he says, "Parabhavas tavad abodha jato yavan jigyata sa atma tattva." Parabhavas is defeat. Defeat means another round of birth, old age, and disease and death. That's defeat for the living entity. You fail to go back to Godhead, now you have to take another birth, and if you're really sinful, you won't even be human. So parabhavas tavad abodha jato. So that that defeat of birth and death is produced of ignorance. We don't know anything about Krishna. We don't know who we are. We're simply engaged in the senses. Boom, we go. Abodha jata. Abodha means ignorance, and jata means birth. So, yavan, you will certainly experience that as long as yavan the jigyasas atma tattvam, you don't inquire into the truth of the self. And the atma means not only individual self, but the super soul, super self also. As long as you're not interested in that, and you don't inquire into it, then you'll remain controlled by illusion. And you'll simply be defeated in birth after birth. So, yavat kriyas tavadidam manovai. As long as you're not inquiring into that, your activities will be fruitive activities. You're looking for some fruit, whether pious or sinful or whatever. Kriyas tavadidam mano, and therefore your mind will be karmatmakam. Karmatmak means filled with all of these fruitive desires, unfulfilled desires, and fears and anxieties, and all that's in there. And that will take you into another material body. Yavat kriyasta idam manobai karmatmakam yena sharira bandha. By which that mind filled with all these karmic desires and fruit will give you another body. Yena sharira bandha. So what's the solution? The third verse. He says, Evam mana karma vashampayunte avidyyapanubadiyamani. So thus I've described now, the mind filled with all these fruitive desires keeps you bound again and again to material bodies. And then the last two lines, he gives a solution. Priti nayavan mai vasudevi. It's all in the form of yavatavad. Priti nayavan mai vasudevi namuchate dehi yogena tavat. As long as one has not developed love for Vasudev, who is none other than myself, this is what he says. This is Rishabdev speaking. Priti mai vasudevi namuchate, no liberation, dehi yogena tavat. So much instruction in those three, and Prabhupada would often quote the first two. Yeah, I think he even quoted the second one more, this parabhavastava bodhajata. Because it's just so many instances, like in the Bhagavad Gita, here's the choice you have. You're a human being, use your intelligence, you can undertake self-control, austerities, yes, there's some suffering involved there, but the goal is purification. It's not extreme austerities. Getting up early is that extreme, But if you don't do it, you won't be able to chant and everything. So getting up early is the first thing. And others, obviously. But they're possible to do, even in this age, And that was Lord Chaitanya's gift. If you chant and dance, you chant Hare Krishna, then you get the spiritual strength. Krishna gives it to you to get up early in the morning and start chanting, take a cold shower. That's a big step, cold shower. You can take a warm shower and then end it with a cold. I just took cold, even in my old age. Anyway, so that's this verse. There's no purport, but I gave all this explanation. Anyway, let's go on then. Aneka chitta vibranta moha jala samavritaha prasakta kama bhogeshu patanti narakeshu chao. Here comes fire and brimstone. Thus perplexed by various anxieties and bound by a network of illusions, they become too strongly attached to sense enjoyment and fall down into hell. Purport: the demoniac man knows no limit to his desire to acquire money. Anyway, I won't name names, but you know who I'm thinking of. That is unlimited. That is unlimited. He thinks only of how much assessment he has just now and schemes to engage that stock market, stock of wealth further and further. For that reason, he does not hesitate to act in any sinful way and so deals in the black market for illegal gratification. He is enamored by the possessions he has already, such as land, family, house, and bank balance, and he is always planning to improve them. He believes in his own strength, and he does not know that whatever he is gaining is due to his past good deeds. He is given an opportunity to accumulate such things, but he has no conception of past causes. He simply thinks that all his massive wealth is due to his own endeavor. A demoniac person believes in the strength of his personal work, not in the law of karma. According to the law of karma, a man takes his birth in a high family, or becomes rich, or very well educated, or very beautiful, because of good work in the past. The demoniac think that all these things are accidental and due to the strength of one's personal ability. They do not sense any arrangement behind all the varieties of people, beauty, and education. Anyone who comes into competition with such a demoniac man is his enemy. There are many demoniac people, and each is enemy of the others, to the others. This enmity becomes more and more deep between persons, then between families, then between societies, and at last between nations. Therefore, there is constant strife, war, and enmity all over the world. Each demoniac person thinks that he can live at the sacrifice of all others. Generally, a demoniac person thinks of himself as the supreme God. And a demoniac preacher tells his followers, "Why are you seeking God elsewhere? You are all yourselves God. Whatever you like, you can do. Don't believe in God. Throw away God. God is dead." These are all the demoniac's preachings. Okay, I'm going to maybe fix that. Although the demoniac person sees others equally rich and influential, or even more so, he thinks that no one is richer than he and that no one is more influential than he. As far as promotion to the higher planetary systems is concerned, he does not believe in performing yajnas or sacrifices. Demons think that they will manufacture their own process of yajna and prepare some machine by which they will be able to reach any higher planet. The best example of such a demoniac man was Ravana. He offered a program to people by which he would prepare a staircase so that anyone could reach the heavenly planets without performing sacrifices, such as are prescribed in the Vedas. Similarly, in the present age, such demoniac men are striving to reach the higher planetary systems by mechanical arrangements. These are examples of bewilderment. The result is that without their knowledge, they are gliding toward hell. Here the Sanskrit word moha jala is very significant. Jala means a net, like fish caught in a net. They have no way to come out. So this is a very bracing purport and verse. But the thing is, we're kind of surrounded, by people like that. I mean, most people are innocent. They're innocent. They're not out and out demons. Not big demons anyway. They're just victims. They're victims, victimized by ignorance and by their past misdeeds. So if we have faith in this, and how do you develop faith in these things? Because we can't see it. You remember I mentioned that name Adhokshaja for Krishna? Adhokshaja is often used as a name for Krishna when you're talking about beginning the process of devotional service. That's why Savai Pungsang Paro Dharma Yato Bhakti Adhokshaja. That supreme Dharma is that which engenders devotion to Adhokshaja, which simply means the transcendent Lord is beyond the range of our mind and senses at the present moment, because they're all contaminated with modes of nature. But, so how can we develop faith? Well, by coming in contact with the faithful, you see. And the process of devotional service, beginning with the chanting of the holy name, is such that if one just suspends his disbelief, and tries the chanting, then you experience something. There's an experience there that can't be explained materially, And Krishna is giving you a little dollop of faith there so that you'll continue and we'll investigate more. And that's the whole program of Lord Chaitanya's movement. Chanting, how would he preach in South India? He would go on the street and chant, and for hours. And of course, Ratha Yatra when he went to Puri. And that process is so powerful. Even if you just hear the name at a distance, it has its effect. If you just hear the holy name, what to speak if you're drawn into chant. Indradyumna Swami, he's been doing this Polish tour and for many years now. And I recently, I think it was something on Dandavats, and he was describing how these people that they've been, when they first started, they would go on the one sea there, I forget what it's called, but it's Poland. I think they have some beach, and he would go down the whole beach, and a whole series of festivals, and people would be, they would be curious, but they weren't coming in droves to see them, But now, after years and years of doing it, there are many people who are just so happy to see them. you know. They've gotten a book, they've gotten prasadam, they see the ladies dancing, you know, you've seen how they're all attractive. And then they have a big mela at the end there in a big stadium, you know, and a lot of chanting and so forth. And so it's just, it affects people. And after a while, they're very, because you know, life is pretty drab, you know, but then, oh, here comes the Hare Krishnas, you know. So what does that do? Of course, it has to, you know, to become mature, you need to get to the point of generally getting a book, you know, and reading the absolute truth. And there's so much knowledge, you know, behind it that undergirds it. But the whole idea is that it can change your whole way in which you think of your life. And there are these wonderful stories. If you're not subscribing to Vijay's Sankirtan story, you know, you should do it. There was one today about one fellow who I think in New Zealand he had been distributing books, and he's out there, and one fellow comes to him and he's interested, and I think he had some contact years before, and now he's seeing the devotees again for the first time. And it was such a wonderful exchange. He didn't have enough money to buy the Bhagavatam, but he was very interested in getting some of the other books, you know, like that. So, you know, and this is how, you know, Krishna works to break through the veil of ignorance and illusion and give people a glimpse of the truth and a glimpse of spiritual life, which, if they're lucky, will lead them on further and become, you know, faithful. And just a note before we end, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's disappearance day. Now, becoming acquainted with some of the exalted devotees in our line, you know, of course Srila Prabhupada is there, but then you learn about Bhaktisiddhanta, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and so many others. And this is, by reading about their lives and their experiences, and Srila Prabhupada's, you know, wonderful, incredible life, this can be a real source of faith also, because you can see how their influence was able to spread so widely, because they were able to impart faith in others by their very character and their knowledge and their so forth. And you can also get, well, if these exalted souls believe in this, you know, how can I disbelieve in it? Here it is proved, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, you know, who really revived modern Gaudiya Vaishnavism. It had become there were the Sahajiyas and so much, you know, false lines there, and it became, you know, confused. But he, by his great effort, and you know, and was brought out this morning, he prayed for a ray of Vishnu who would help him, you know, because he did so much work, and that was Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. Incredible intellect for a little child. Can you imagine? He never forgot anything that he read. And he read a lot. But even from childhood, you know, he's 5 years old, he learns the whole Bhagavad Gita, you know, and he was able to recall years later. So there's this wonderful biography written by Bhakti Vikas Swami. It is totally available for free. I have it, he did that, I didn't steal it. And but it was a download of, you know, a PDF. If you're interested, I can give you the link or send it to you. It's vast, it's encyclopedic, it's amazing, but it's so much wonderful, you know, things. I remember there's one, you know, and this is one chapter on the verses that he would quote, you know, his favorite verses in classes, which is always fascinating. And one of them was one that, anyway, I found three natural ashtakas in the Bhagavatam. The Sadhu Sangashtaka, and the Krishnastaka, and there's a third one, I think. Anyway, the end of the Krishnastaka is the verse that he would always quote. Avismati Krishna Padada Vindayo, Chinotya Badhrani Chashantanoti, Sattvasya Shuddhim Padamatma Bhaktim Jnanam Cha Vijnana Varaga Yuktam. So what it means is that by cultivating Krishna Katha, the whole thing is the Krishna Kathastakam, and the importance of hearing, and how Bhagavatam is, you know, the source of such wonderful things to hear. The result is, if you do it right, constant remembrance of Krishna. Now, we had the wrong translation there for a long time. Avismriti, we just had remembrance. But it's more than just remembrance. Avismriti means not forgetting. You see? Avismriti. That means constant remembrance. So constant remembrance of Krishna results in these things. Krishna badada vindayo, chinotya buddha. Or everything inauspicious in your life is destroyed. You see? Chinotya buddhani, shangtanoti. And all good fortune. Sham is like in Shankara, it's a word for Shiva, he who brings good fortune, So Sham is good fortune in your life. Shangtanoti expands your good fortune. And then Sattvasya Shuddhim, your existence becomes purified. And Paramatma Bhakti, it nourishes devotion to the Supreme Soul, Krishna, which is characterized by jnana to vijnana viraga yuktam, by knowledge and realized knowledge, direct, perception, and viraga, detachment from everything material. So that's the result of Bhagavad Gita class, hearing about Krishna. Any questions or comments, final questions, or I'll end with one quick poem. You ready for a poem? Okay. All right, so you've heard this one before, but it's one of my favorites. The Sanskrit is beautiful. Aho aho bir nakale viduyate sudha sudhara monoram pade pade dine dine chandana chandra shitalam yasho yashora tana yasagiyate. Because at every step they drink a flood of wondrous nectar sweet, whose cooling power sandal paste enhanced with camphor can't defeat. They feel as if the raging blaze of Kali's days had ne'er begun. How blessed are they who fill their days with praise of Shri Yashoda's son. Perfect description of Srila Prabhupada. All glory to Srila Prabhupada, all glory to Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And now we'll adjourn for Kirtan.